Hey guys, happy Monday. Welcome to SJU. This is how we do it. The best song for a party? Answer below in the comments. Guys, we have some huge movie news to cover today with a lot of ramifications on show business and the industry as a whole moving forward. And that is that Lifetime is making a movie based on the love life of Colonel Sanders, KFC's own Colonel Sanders. So we'll be digging into that. But before we get into that, we're going to be getting into this huge news with Warner Brothers announcing that they will be dropping their 2021 slate in theaters as well as HBO Max simultaneously. The story's been developing over the past couple of days, so we've had a chance to gather a lot of reactions and take a look at a lot of the ramifications and sort of try to get an idea of what's coming next. And with me to soothsay the impending film apocalypse, Spencer J. Gilbert. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going? Reminding you all to like, subscribe, and ring that bell Biv DeVoe because the best party song is Poison.
Whoa!
I had a long time to work on that, Joe.
that was really good. I'll take it. Eric Goldman, your party song, Poison. This is how we.
I'm too distracted by the fact that I spilled water all over my pandemic sweats right as we began this, right as Jonathan was yelling go.
You're a total pro, though. We had no idea. We had absolutely
always broadcast in a towel.
Amazing.
This is how we do it. Okay. Yes. And then stick around. We will be answering your questions from chat. So get those topics in to Ryan on the ones and twos, and we'll jump into them. But first, let's get into this stuff because it's a lot. This is via all of the trades to her, Viva Variety, Deadline. In an unprecedented announcement, Warner Brothers will send 17 films to its streaming service, HBO Max, for 31 days, the same day they hit theaters. The 2021 slate includes projects like The Suicide Squad, Matrix 4, Dune, Godzilla v. Kong, Space Jam: A New Legacy. I didn't know it had a little title there to it. So that's the Space Jam sequel. Little Things, Judas and the Black Messiah, Tom and Jerry, Mortal Kombat, Those Who Wish Me Dead, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, In the Heights, Reminiscent, Malignant, The Many Saints of Newark, King Richard, and Crime Mound Show. Now, Warner Brothers stresses that these are pandemic-only rules just for 2021. But are they? So this is insane. So initial reactions, first of all. What'd you think when you heard the news? What'd you think when you calmed down a little bit? How do you guys feel about this?
I definitely had, my gut reaction was, oh no, this is the end of theaters, as someone who doesn't want theaters to go away. After that, I did think, I don't know for sure that's the case. Everything we've been talking about this whole time about how this is speeding up things that were already happening, including shortening the windows and movie theaters becoming more and more about event movies versus like smaller stuff. This just seems to just go nuclear on. And there's going to be a lot to suss out about how this does affect everything. But it's pretty good. But my second reaction was this is an AT&T move. That it's Warner Brothers is the one announcing it, but their corporate overlords, newish. This is all HBO. Like the decision to do this was like looking at HBO Max and being like, we need this thing to be big. And they already did it with Wonder Woman, but now they're like, no, we're going to put so many movies on there that you will be forced to get it because one of those movies we just mentioned is your important movie next year. So you will get HBO Max. You will you'll figure out how to use it because you probably already have it if you have HBO and you haven't even tried yet. So that's my big.
As Spencer J. Gilbert always says, the point of Apple Plus is because Apple wants you to buy more Apple TVs. They want you to buy more iPhones and earbuds. And AT&T wants you to just desperately need to package HBO Max with cable and everything else that AT&T is throwing at you. Gilbert, famously say something else.
I can't believe I ate the whole thing. No, I think what AT&T needs to do, or what they're doing with this, is trying to justify the fact that they bought Warner Media and they paid some ungodly sum for it. And it's like, what do you got? You got a streaming service with, 7 million signups, 8 million, something like that. And then Disney just, flops their mouse on the table and has 75 million subscribers in the first year or something like that. So it's like they are pushing all of their chips, not I think so much into the Disney basket, because I think that they know that they can't really compete with Disney, but I think that they see the stock price of Netflix and they're like, why don't we have that? And the only way to do that is to push all your chips into streaming. So I think this is a move. On one hand, like, I think it pleases some customers who just wouldn't leave the house no matter what. And it does. There is a certain logic to it. I heard the CEO say that they were looking ahead to 2021 and they were seeing this complete logjam of releases of all the things that were going to come out when people were back in theaters around the end of 2021. And it would devour the profits of everything because people only will go out and see so many movies. And if you have like 4 or 5 big hits in the multiplex every weekend in 2021, as awesome as that would be for me, that they think it's like, okay, well, we'll just drop it now when we have, the world's attention to ourselves. So I think that this is there are like some tangential benefits, short-term tangential benefits to the consumer. But I mean, there's just so many theaters like just aren't gonna make it out of this. And AT&T does not care. They want a higher stock price and they want to justify the fact that they bought a media company that isn't doing so hot right now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are asking, like, why not just, do the first quarter, the first 2 quarters of 2021 with a vaccine right around the corner and the pandemic's going to end any day now, as opposed to, taking this size of a shot with the entire year. I want to get your thoughts on it, but I think I'd have to echo Spencer because they don't care. Like I don't think this is a 2021 only play. Like if this works and this drives up that stock price and this drives up subscribers, AT&T doesn't care about the movie business and the sanctity of sitting with your friends and eating popcorn. And they don't care that Dave Coulier had one of the best nights of his life in a movie theater and Alanis Morissette sang a song about it. Like they don't care.
They should care about that more than anything. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, everyone has to smile when they put out a press release like this on the corporate side of HBO Max and Warner Brothers, because I'm sure beyond, and we'll talk about the filmmakers, but I'm sure there are people at Warner Brothers that are like, what are you doing to us? I mean, because this means that all the biggest movies we just mentioned, Matrix, Dune, Suicide Squad, on top of Wonder Woman, which was already doing this, they're all going to lose money. None of them are going to make money, those movies. It's just not, I don't think it's possible. The economics of none of those movies are going to get enough subscribers on their own. Like in August, when Suicide Squad comes to HBO Max, I don't think it's going to make up what a potential $800 million to $1 billion box office would do. And so I think at Warner Brothers, it must be like, wow, we're really doing this, huh? But yeah, I mean, obviously it's looking way down the road and just being like, we want to stack up these subscribers and add through the year and hope a lot of them stick around and don't cancel after they see the movie they want to see. So yeah, it's a long-term thing, but it's definitely that corporate just tunnel vision thing, for better or for worse. Versus
there's a great article that came out, I think, over the weekend. I'm looking at it now, CNBC, called "The Home of the Sopranos is Under Siege: Inside the Battle for the Soul of HBO," and it goes into kind of the corporate backroom knifings that were going on, and all the layoffs that happened in Warner Media earlier this year is all to basically funnel every creative decision and every piece of content through HBO Max. It's all or nothing, and it says that the CEO has a major case of Netflix envy. So he doesn't care about really any other metric except signups and investors saying, oh, we got to get in now because this is going to do Netflix numbers.
Disney made a similar announcement earlier in the year that they were going to be, sort of really focusing and rallying around Disney Plus. They didn't drop their water tower on the table quite as hard as Warner Brothers has with their entire 2021 slate. But, sort of like what you said earlier, Eric, is this the sudden impending doom, or is this just slightly speeding up what everyone was going to do anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the movie theaters won't in their entirety go away, and they'll still exist. It just seems like more and more it'll be. I don't want to even say a niche thing. It's almost turning it into like a Broadway thing, right? Because look, they didn't announce this for 2022, and you know what's coming in 2022? A new Batman movie. And that's one where it's like that's like their biggest single character, right? That Warner Media has on its own. I will be very curious if they would try this with that, or if they feel like no, we want to optimize the money and give this. But again, I think it's going to turn, because more and more you see people say, well, I only go to the movies, and me and my family go to movies like 3 or 4 times a year. So it's already turning into that almost like going to theater thing. And a lot of, you talk about the prices and why it became that anyway, but it's just going to increase that. And again, and it makes me sad about it, is just it's going to pretty much, I think, eventually only be these blockbusters. And I do think in 2 years, they probably maybe will go back to at least it'll be a 2 to 3 week window, but maybe Batman doesn't go on HBO Max the week it comes out. It's only in theaters, but within 3 weeks, it's on HBO Max.
I mean, the interesting thing here, and I'm only talking halfway out of my ass because I don't know the true economics behind all of this, but I think it's kind of either or. Like, either they keep everything on streaming and the blockbuster is dead, or they keep theaters open and it's only blockbusters, because it doesn't make sense to make a $200 million movie if you're just plopping it on HBO Max or Disney Plus for your $7 a month or whatever. Like you need the theater experience to make the billions of dollars that make sense to, hire 900 animators to get the CGI fur perfect on Kristen Wiig or something like that. You're just going to get a lot more Netflix style content. And I use that kind of disparagingly, but I mean, just like, you're just going to get a lot of lower budget stuff. And hey, maybe that'll lead to greater creativity and freedom and stuff like that. But I don't think blockbusters as currently constituted make sense in a world that doesn't have theaters in it. Yeah.
There's a reason Disney Plus, is become the home for movies like Togo, and this week they have Safety. There are movies that used to be in the theater, like live action movies about people and animals, or sports movies and stuff that economically they're like, well, that doesn't make sense for theatrical anymore, but we'll make it for Disney Plus. But they're not greenlighting. Again, the pandemic means we're getting these giant movies on streaming, but they're not greenlighting, like you said, Spencer, a giant superhero tentpole just to put it on streaming.
Right. And so we've got a couple comments in the chat, and I want to bounce those off you guys, and then we'll sort of get into the industry's reactions, and then what happens next with all of this, because I think the future of this is fascinating. So Oliver L. says, I only care about a few WB releases. This will not make me subscribe to HBO Max on a regular basis. Initial reactions to that? I mean, for me, it's still for 2021. I'm so sick of talking about COVID. I apologize, but for me, it's still a safety issue, and it will be through the year. Whether people start getting vaccinated or not. One person's not going to get a shot, and then it's all over. We still got some time ahead of us, so I'm happy in the meantime to watch Matrix 4 at home. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of too bad that they've completely bumbled this and then kicked theaters while they're down, in addition, because HBO Max is really good. It's super confusing that, like, you can also subscribe to HBO on, like, your cable package, and that's different. And you had HBO Go and HBO Now and all that stuff. And I think they're now just figuring out, they're just going to call everything Max. Okay, it's all Max. Yeah. It's all Max. Yeah. But for $15, like, you're getting a lot. And I think it's probably, if I had to pick one at this point, that's the one I would hold on to. Just the HBO library alone is great of TV. So I would suggest to the commenter that maybe they cancel Disney Plus or Netflix and just sign on to those when they feel like something big is coming out, and then use that money to HBO. Personally,
yeah, it's the streaming thing is so funny because has everyone understandably complains there's too many streamers now, but the workaround for that is just subscribe to something when the thing you care about, it's like, oh, I only care right now on CBS All Access about Discovery. Well, then just subscribe for like those 2 to 3 months, or subscribe for 1 month when it's all the whole season's up, and then unsubscribe. Now, of course, those streamers are counting on, and this happens, a lot of people just are lazy, don't think about it, and they just leave it on there, and they're not even watching a streaming service they're paying for. It's a mix. And I think that will continue. It's like, to that person, it's like, hey, I understand although I do think HBO Max has such a great catalog. If you're a film lover, you can find stuff to watch all year. There's so many old movies I've never seen that I'm watching HBO Max. But if you're more selective and you're like, hey, well, I do want to see Matrix 4, but I want to pay for a year of HBO Max, then, you can just get it for that month and then cancel right. I have done the thing, by the way, where I've subscribed to streaming service and canceled it immediately because it just cancels at the end of the cycle you just signed up for. So it's just like, I just did it. I don't even have to think about it in a month, so that's
I mean,
skill you can
part of me has to wonder if they're hoping that the really sick promo package that's going to play at the top of all of these movies is really going to get you invested in Perry Mason.
It should.
Right. Yeah, and it absolutely should. I'm not being a dick at all. Like there's, especially, sorry, Ram, if you like true crime at all, HBO Max. It's all of a sudden it's just this weird hub of all of these really cool true crime documentaries and movies and specials, and it's great. Sorry. Anyway, John Malley.
Could I actually bring something up that we're talking about in the chat? I don't know if you guys have mentioned.
Is it about how it's in the U.S. only?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And then Elisa Hawkins also asked, and I know, Eric, you've kept up with this, about what the Roku situation is or what this could mean for the Roku, why it's not on Roku yet, and if we think this will lead to it going on Roku.
So let's talk obstacles, and let's break that down into two parts. Let's talk about territories, and let's talk about roadblocks with just technology. So John O'Malley in the chat to echo the Roku issue also says, you also have to factor in that it's U.S. only right now. They'll still be factoring in box office income from the rest of the world, which is especially nowadays, the U.S. is no longer the make or break for box office records. So, globally, is there that much of an impact, or has AT&T screwed themselves by just not getting HBO Max rolled out efficiently into more territories with this big new battle plan?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I think we've talked about this a little bit, but it's like in like some other countries like China and Japan, it's like they're thriving their box office. Like Japan just had like their second biggest hit ever come out, and China's
Demon Slayer, baby.
Yep. And it was funny. They beat Titanic 23 years later. And China has like two $500 million plus hits. So we don't know. It's always hard to tell which American movies will break out in some countries, but any of these could, right? And be like a giant, it could still be a big hit. Mm-hmm. Like it's conceivable, Matrix 4 could make 600 million worldwide, and the US is really not a factor there. We just don't know yet.
The factor would be boosting subscriber numbers, so maybe they win a little bit in both.
Right, and that's what they hope, of course, ideally. Right. But of course, then there's also the fact that it will increase piracy, because guess what? You're giving anyone who wants to do that a great source to do it. Yeah. So it's there's a lot of different strange factors that go into it. But I do think that it's everything will box office wide will be so strange to track in the next year, because it will be this strange year where nothing really came out the way we're used to it coming out.
Well, let's talk about technology too, because Roku has been a big issue. Max is also not on things like PS5, which shocks me that you wouldn't have all of your streaming apps ready to roll out on probably one of the biggest ticket technology items of the year.
Yeah, I can't really speak to this because I don't have either one, but I just know that they have to work out these deals individually, and I feel like Roku kind of has them over the coals, because HBO Max is getting all of the heat. Roku's sitting pretty. They're like, everyone's yelling at HBO Max, why can't you settle with Roku? Who knows what the terms are? I know that in that article, again, some guy got fired or laid off or resigned or something, partly because of how he dealt with the getting HBO Max on the Kindle Fire Stick, and how he gave away too much. Whoa. And they didn't like the terms of that deal. So maybe there's some possessiveness going on one side or the other.
Yeah, so, I saw an interview with one of the execs. It's hard to keep track of which exec on the Warner Media side, and he was throwing a little shade at Roku because he said something about, because they're like, why is there not a deal? And he said, it's well, you haven't seen the economics. You haven't seen. He's basically saying you haven't seen the crappy deal they're offering us that they don't want to take. That being said, I mean, it will get worked out, but I am still surprised it's been this many months, and we're still. And I do, I keep thinking, well, Wonder Woman's almost here. They got to make a deal before Wonder Woman, but I guess they don't have to. But I mean, that is a huge obstacle. if you're not on some of the biggest platforms, ways people are watching right now, that's a big issue that I'm sure they want to resolve and will one day, one way or the other. But get on that, guys. You got some movies.
Screen Junkies Plus. So let's talk about reactions from the industry, because they've come in hard and they've continued to roll in. So of course, one of the key voices here would be AMC. Adam Aron, CEO and president of AMC, is of course opposing, the plan. He noted on Thursday that he had backed, and he hates this too, that he had backed Warner's previous.
You hear that? I know.
Yes.
I'll mute.
No, it's okay. We like the participation.
She makes the show better, honestly. Otherwise, it's just you in a towel being all weird.
I was cutting it close today.
Every time you say something, like make a very solid point in this video, in my head, I'm like, and he's in a towel. Okay, moving. And Eric's covered in water.
Towel talk with Spencer.
Don't forget to bring a towel.
All I need is
Hitchhiker's Guide. Choose your reference.
All I need is for the cat that's right off camera to just throw up in my lap, and we're good. Chances of that are high. So here's what he had to say, because they had backed the Wonder Woman plan. But now that this larger year-long plan has rolled out, this was his statement. These coronavirus-impacted times are uncharted water for all of us, which is why AMC signed on to an HBO Max exception to customary practices for one film only. Wonder Woman 84 being released by WB at Christmas when the pandemic appears that it will be at its height. However, Warner now hopes to do this for all their 2021 theatrical movies, despite the likelihood that with vaccines right around the corner, the theater business is expected to recover. So a little house cleaning in that statement where he's like, hey guys, vaccine on the way. Come on, come see a movie. Obviously AMC, furious. They're not doing well. AMC Entertainment Holdings was filed to raise up to $844 million by selling stock as they struggle to stay afloat. They plan to sell up to 200 million shares at an offering price of around $422. Their shares plunged to 363 recently on the New York Stock Exchange. So obviously not doing well. Now, they're clearly pissed about this, but they're also, this is how weird this year has been. They started just being pissed about Trolls 2 with Universal, and now here we are being pissed about a much larger troll on the industry. How do you navigate this relationship between AMC and Warner Brothers at this point?
This is where, again, I think the AT&T rears into it, because I think if it were up to Warner Brothers, they would want to be more delicate about this, because what a chaotic year for AMC, because Universal did the Trolls 2 thing without consulting anything. AMC went freaked out. Then they made nice, and they made this huge new deal. Then the Wonder Woman deal happened with everyone on board, and AMC's like, we're totally happy with the economics of this. And then Warner Brothers, 2 weeks later, is like, guess what? We're doing this other thing. We haven't talked to you about it. Mm-hmm. And AMC's freaking out. The problem is that, unfortunately for AMC and all theaters, right now in this moment, and it could be different 6 months from now, in this moment, they don't have any leverage. It's because people aren't going to the theaters. And again, this is where I think, because it's AT&T who are all about, they're a tech company and they're all looking at the streaming of it all. They're not even really caring about these relationships with the theaters, No. Well, because it's insane that they weren't told. I mean, we'll talk about the other people who weren't told, because across the board, it is one of the more sort of shocking moves that Warner Brothers made this announcement without telling anyone, some pretty important people. But the theaters, I think for AT&T, it's no, we want to get this announcement out. So
yeah, you raise a great point that all this is coming from the CEO of AT&T. These statements aren't coming from whoever's running Warner Brothers. It's coming from, and I can't believe I could ever forget this man's name, John Stankey, one of the great CEO names in the biz. So Stankey puts on his Stanky pants and says to AMC, this is from a Deadline article today, is that their internal data shows that even movie lovers aren't going to be rushing back to theaters until the end of 2021. Even if they have a vaccine and they're comfortable going outside, all packing into a movie theater, according to their own polls, is something that's going to happen even after that. So they are just, based on that, writing off 2021 completely, and to hell with the long-term consequences in traditional media, because they don't really care or think about that. It's Stanky. Stanky's thinking about
classic Stanky.
Stanky's thinking about how to throttle your broadband and then sell it back to you with a special exclusive gamer package. He's not thinking about what Denis Villeneuve thinks about your release schedule.
Well, and unfortunately, I think John Stanky's going to realize that he should have thought a little more about these folks, because there's also this isn't just AT&T versus AMC. There is so much blowback to Warner Brothers right now from Legendary. They paid for the majority of Dune and Godzilla v. Kong. Village Roadshow, who's behind The Matrix 4, all furious, not consulted. Legendary doesn't have a great relationship anymore with Warner Brothers anyway. Like, that was already sort of a thin ice relationship. So I mean, the ripples in that alone are wild. And then when you factor in talent deals that were based on box office, none of those people were consulted beforehand. Like, their bottom lines are being affected. Their paydays are being affected. And I don't mean that in don't funnel that as a liberal elite. They don't get their zillions. Like, imagine you were supposed to get paid this Friday and then you just don't. Or your check gets cut in half and no one told you, or no one consulted you as to why it's going to happen. They just told you it's going to happen. That sucks.
Eric, I have a question actually. Did they do this just to avoid leaking? Is that really, is this probably why? Because as soon as they tell somebody, it goes to the public. So you might as well just say it.
17 movies worth of deals, it would have leaked. Yeah. And so I assume it might have just been a messaging thing, but still insane to me when you think about how big these people are, that they are kind of, quote unquote, screwing over. I realize we're dealing with a lot of millionaires here.
No, I'm not saying it's right either. I'm just saying that's my best guess of what they're doing.
I think you're right. That's probably why. And it is just insane that, Legendary, who, paid for almost all of Dune, was just not even told about that this was happening, that, we're taking your movie. It's really basically your movie and we're going to put it in a totally different place. And then, there's a reason Netflix makes these crazy deals where they pay people so much up front because they don't get anything at the end. It's just because they don't release metrics on viewership. So again, for HBO Max to just be like, we're not going to talk to you. You've all made these very intricately you made deals that were probably gone over with, lawyers for weeks and weeks, but we're not even going to think about that. We're just going to make this announcement.
Well, that's why I think it's less about, the leak issue, sure, but more because if they had told people, everyone would have said
no, right?
No.
That's a good point.
That's true. Yeah. Because it wouldn't have been all 17, right? Like, maybe they could have gotten away with 10 of them, but they wanted it to be all 17. So they just said it and they hoped it would work out.
Yeah. I think this is AT&T going, we're AT&T. I'm John Stanky, bitch. Like, we have we're Wayland Utani.
But yeah, I think this all just the motivation. It's just short-sighted because he's only thinking about boosting signups for HBO Max, so he can take that to the board and say, "Look, we don't have all these big movies, sitting in a van down by the river, not being watched. We're using them. We tripled signups this month, and then he'll worry about next month later." It's short-sighted also in the sense that God willing, what if things are back to normal earlier than that timetable that they have in their polling? What if people are back and comfortable going back in theaters this coming summer, and every other studio has their giant releases in theaters, but HBO Max doesn't, or they're releasing them on streaming first and completely killing the profits that they could have made. It just seems like a move that's made in one sense in the far future, because streaming is the future in some sense, but also very short-sighted in all the people you're going to alienate and the entire business that you're going to kind of kick in the teeth.
Legendary is already threatening legal action, so you're absolutely right. They have, we put the goofy Thanos snap on the thumb for a reason. They have annihilated so many relationships and deals. It's just wild to me. It adds a little context to me on Legendary's trying to make the deal with Netflix over Godzilla v. Kong. And probably just trying to find, because obviously they weren't told about this, but you've got to assume there's been some smoke before the fire, and just having to deal with AT&T on a daily basis, and probably just being like, you know what, we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I was thinking about who must not be psyched about this? Christopher Nolan, who makes almost all his movies for Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tenet was already its own thing a few months ago, but will Nolan decide he wants to walk from Warner Brothers as making movies going? We don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of crazy ripple effects, and some of it, by the way, they'll work it out. These people will make money in a different way and they'll work it out, but there'll be other people that this will really piss them off in a way that they might just not want to work for Warner Brothers for at least a while because of it.
I mean, a point on Nolan for just a moment. He's an incredible director.
Oh yeah,
visionary, fantastic blockbuster maker. But
yeah.
I mean, if his intention was to save theaters with Tenet, I feel like what an epic hoisting of his own petard right there. That all it did was prove that theaters are not back and probably accelerated this process that was happening behind the scenes.
Maybe a little
Whoops.
bit.
But then what whiplash, right, for Warner Brothers to do both those things? And be like, we're going to put out the first big movie, even though it's too early to do that, and then we're going to put everything straight to streaming.
Yeah. Yes. All right, let's do the exact opposite.
Roblinson 88. Sorry, I got to do my old man lean to look at the smaller text. Roblinson 88 in chat, sort of talking about that short-sightedness of this relationship deal. Argues, I think what we're saying in terms of relationships and continuing to build content with these companies, it's short-sighted. AT&T knows exactly what they're doing, but Roblinson says AT&T is going to sell more internet, so it's not short-sighted. It's a power play. It's only a matter of time before they start attacking net neutrality again. With this additional thing sort of in their pocket. Hey, you want to watch The Matrix 4? Well, you got to watch it at 56K. Unless you buy this super extreme stank package.
Yeah, sorry, you live in a Verizon town. You got to move on over to an AT&T burg.
You got to move counties, baby. Yeah, so, for AT&T, they know the play that they're moving.
Yeah.
But just the amount of damage it's going to do, in the meantime, is absolutely wild to me.
Yeah, I know. I brought it up earlier. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I think we all agree it's a power play. They know, but yeah, it's just. I guess it's also that thing about it's not just changing distribution, but it's going to change the perception of Warner Brothers and maybe the kind of movies they make. If they're not the home of the next Dune. Because they pissed off people who would want to, both on the corporate side and Legendary and the filmmaker side who might want to do something like that with them.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, it's less to me a power play than it is a desperation play, A, to be like, look, we can do Netflix too, and B, to be like, look, we bought Warner Brothers. I swear we had a good reason. This was our reason all along, right? See, look, we're doing something.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah, it's interesting a power play this big, but you don't have the number one IP company in your pocket. If AT&T had done this with Disney, I would have been like, Jesus Christ, RIP the theater industry, because they can actually pull it off with Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. They launched HBO Max with nothing. It feels like they launched it too early. If it came out coming up this year and HBO Max is coming and it's got every big movie in the theaters, it might have had a better, smoother rollout. But I think they felt like they had to do something because we were all stuck at home. But it's just, it's great library content, but there's nothing you have to watch right now unless you're a big Undoing guy like me. But that's over.
It's over and done. Well, now you got to watch Murder in Middle Beach because it's the real version of that. It's interesting. So let's talk about moving forward. Let's say this is the new model. I want to just talk a little bit about ramifications for the industry moving forward, and then we were going to talk a little Metal Gear Solid. It's fine. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll answer some questions, and then we'll get into obviously the biggest
Snake.
I just want to know who plays the box, or if they just CGI it to his body, or if Oscar Isaac can actually fit.
He's a good actor. He can get the box.
He can get under that box. But then do they have a stuntman fill in? Anyway. And then we'll get into the KFC movie and your questions for chat.
We'll have a full 90 minutes on the KFC movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a 4-hour show today. The first thing I sort of thought about was, with Warner Brothers, AT&T doing this huge push, this huge streaming only push, the streaming services get to be so weird about how they report metrics. this is going to completely change the way people in this industry get paid. Box office numbers used to get stapled to you, and as a result, you made this much money. But Netflix can be like, well, this was the number one show of all time if you count views as someone saying, hey, what's on Netflix? You know, like...
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, again, somebody who knows more than me should fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure that like the rise of streaming, like as a real thing, like more than Netflix, like Peacock, HBO Max, all the other things that started Disney Plus, happened post the latest round of guild negotiations of like Writers Guild, Directors Guild, Producers Guild, Actors Guild, and what have you. So it's like the next time those deals are up, that's when they're going to come to the table and like, we got to figure out how we're getting paid, because right now we're not. And it's like a mystery box. It's like an airplane black box on what happens in here. And it's how is it going to correlate to how people are compensated? But I think that's a fight that's going to happen the next time those deals are up with the studios.
Yeah, and we saw that with the Netflix, with people, with how they would get their raises after 3 seasons when their contracts would be up. So you think all those types of things of these, like, I'm agreeing with what Spencer's saying. Yeah, this has been a problem for a couple of years now that you think they'll really need to iron out at some point.
Well, like what Sarah says, you know, the sort of interesting thing is the scaling of that situation. Whereas with like Netflix, it's like, yeah, we had to do some major fixes with the cast of Stranger Things, but scaling that up to here's how we're gonna lowball Keanu for Matrix 5, 6, and 7 is, it's going to be a fascinating round of negotiations with all of these unions. Thoughts on sort of further ramifications for this stuff, you guys?
Yeah,
that was my only thought.
Heck yeah.
I don't want to repeat myself too much, except to say, yeah, I think that it changes things drastically. I do think in 2 years, I don't think it'll be uniform for every single Warner Brothers release, because like I said, it's like you'll see what they think has the most potential. Like Batman to me is almost like that. I'm so curious what they do with that, but my feeling right now is they would not do this with Batman, right? But they might do it with 80% of their movies, you know. I think you'll just see them make and so more and more it'll start to feel like it already is with Disney Plus, where you're like, I mentioned Togo again because it comes to mind, but I also really like Togo. But it's like Togo is just a movie that Disney today would not put in theaters, and you'll see like when you look at that list of Warner Brothers movies, like there's like 4 of them that were like these were the blockbuster potential, and you'll see 2 years from now, I think those kind of movies are the ones that are going to still get the big theatrical release. The other ones might get this hybrid thing, but it's going to be weird. And we'll also just see which theater chains exactly are around and how they're functioning at that point.
Yeah, no, it's going to be wild times, folks. So yeah, strap in. I think, you know, the biggest conclusion I think we can sort of draw out of this conversation, it seems like we're all on the same page, is that ultimately, no matter how many people, experts in this field, you know, veterans of this industry at Warner Brothers and elsewhere, are gonna, you know, blow up Mr. Stanky and his circle and say, hey, you know, this can't. You gotta listen to us. They won't. There's absolutely no way Warner Brothers is gonna pay a lot of heed to, or sorry, there's no way AT&T is gonna pay much mind to anything anyone at Warner Brothers really sort of has to say about the ramifications of decisions like this. Speaking of ramifications, Spencer, will you talk to us a little bit about this KFC movie?
Oh, okay. Sure. Well, look, I know about as much as you do, where I wake up, I eat my breakfast, I check the news, and on my feed, lo and behold, it's sexy Mario Lopez, a mustached Mario. He's behind a woman, a fetching woman, and upon further reflection, it turns out that he's playing none other than the Colonel, he of the 11 secret spices and herbs. And the fact that they didn't work finger licking good into this tagline is a huge oversight. And I hope
it's not a line in the movie.
I hope somebody got fired for that. So yeah, we all have our secrets. It just happens to be a recipe for seduction.
I hope she's ready to double down.
There you go. Keep them coming. Oh wow, another pun. This is insane. This seems like something from a dystopian idiocracy parody of a feature film, but at the same time is all in good fun. And Mario Lopez will do anything for money, it appears. So I'm excited to see the new cross promotions that they have between different fast food chains and different genres of made-for-TV movie.
In all honesty, I think they've done a really good job with their new Colonel. For a while there, it was actually, I haven't been invested in commercials since I was like a child and really liked the Rallies Cha-Ching guy, who was the marshal of like a parade in my city. Like, I think that was regional, but Seth Green is the Rally Cha-Ching guy. Big deal where I was from. Anyway, you don't remember? Okay, you didn't have Cha-Ching out west. You only had some telling you Checkers burgers, I guess. I was actually really enjoying like, oh hey, who's going to be the Colonel this month? And they were doing all the fun stunt casting with like just random comedians and stuff. And this seems to be obviously the next step of it. And props to the Yum Corporation, really. Or
we don't give enough shout outs to
we may have lost theaters, but look at what we've gained.
Just a famous bowl's worth of media.
Yeah, I'll say, I like you, Joe. I will say, in this day and age, it's hard to make a advertising impact, and so the rotating Colonels thing, it's been going on for a few years now, and we don't like care about all of them, but once in a while, there's like, oh, that's funny, that's weird. Like they'll just do something really outlandish, and this is a fun way to get attention. It's being billed as a mini movie, so I'm guessing it won't fill a 2-hour time slot. Though I'd be all in if they did.
It's a mistake, yeah.
right. Oh, wow. I will mention use this as a way to say, by the way, on the Mario Lopez front, that I really like the new Saved by the Bell. And
heard it's good.
Yes, it is good. So that's my Mario endorsement, and I hope I can endorse this movie when I watch it.
Well, here's hoping the next step is that they gender swap the Colonel for funsies, and YouTube gets very angry. That'll be fun to watch. We got some questions from chat. Let's get into some of these guys, and then I will let the two of you go to put on pants that are dry and actual pants.
The dream.
The absolute dream, baby. Jarrett Johnson says, hey, this is really just an Eric question. How about that Supernatural finale? It felt underwhelming, according to Jarrett. You have 30 seconds, Eric. Go.
I was not a regular watcher in many years, but I watched the last 2 episodes, and I thought that it was fine. It was okay. 15 years, you can't have a satisfying finale for everyone. I was fine with it, even though I maybe like the week before more, but I thought it was interesting to do kind of almost an epilogue on the real finale. It had its highs and lows. That's my thoughts on it.
Hey, Johannes Stromer asks, if you were the presidents of Hollywood, which is to quote Dave Barry, a good name for a band, what would
election pending? We're trying to get Joe elected president of Hollywood. We're working.
President of Hollywood.
What would your? It sounds very like 80s Sunset Strip, right? What would your strategy be to save movie theaters? Just a small question to take us out on.
God, I don't know how to save movie theaters in terms of like returning the public to having the same appetite for going out to the theater that they did in, say, like the 1980s or something like that. Yeah. But the solution for movie theaters and restaurants and every business that isn't a bad business, it's just a bad business right now during a pandemic, is to give them a loan so they don't have to close until things can reopen and we just resume business as usual. It's like it didn't suddenly, I mean, it's always a bad business to open a restaurant, right? Flip a coin. But we didn't there's nothing that changed about the business of opening a restaurant. It was just our behavior changed because of what's happening right now. This isn't like the subprime mortgage crisis or like the Great Depression or something like that. This is like a natural disaster that they need to just put a bunch of hundreds in a t-shirt cannon and just keep firing it at theater chains until they can safely open back up again.
Yeah.
I don't, oh, so sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say it's a hard question to answer because there's the save them during the pandemic versus after, and so everything Spencer just said is I agree with on the saving them right now. Afterwards, that's a tricky thing as far as just like, yes, tickets are too expensive and the popcorn's too expensive, but the popcorn's expensive because the studios are taking most of the money. So there's a lot that has to be worked out economically. I do think like AMC A-list, for someone like me, I was using the hell out of that thing beforehand. I think that there is value to be had in sort of like eventizing nights and maybe, having nostalgia nights and whatnot with cheaper tickets and ways to kind of make it a fun event, a fun night out that doesn't break the bank. Because yes, I don't have kids, but every time I see like people say, well, the reason I don't go to the movies is because me, my wife, and my 2 kids, there's like $100 right there. That's a lot to ask. And so, I think they just have to figure out a way. Maybe you understand that opening night of your giant movie is going to cost a lot, but that if other times you can go and have other things to do there that are, a fun way to get people in on a Wednesday night when not as much is going on could maybe help a lot in the long run.
My thought has a big asterisk on it. And my thought is this: the comic book stores had to adapt very quickly to the fact that people just don't go buy comic books anymore because they turned them all into movies. So like stores had to adapt. It was like, okay, well now we have a tabletop gaming league, and we put a stage in the broom closet, and now we do punk shows. Like they had to, just like, I remember, what was the name of the store? There was a record store in San Francisco that very famously just turned their basement into a comedy venue, and that kept them afloat for ages. It was a video rental store, because no one needed to rent DVDs anymore. But people would go see Sarah Silverman there in the basement. So I guess my thought is that movie theaters need to adapt to make themselves that, like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Let's go to the theater and play. I don't know, like whatever it is you start putting to make.
They're showing Floyd Mayweather fighting Jake Paul in Theater 7.
IMAX.
And you know what? But even if I don't want to, like, I don't even know what it would be like. But even if I don't want to see a movie, like, there's other reasons to go. But here's the asterisk. Do kids go places anymore? I don't know.
Right.
When I was a boy, that's what you did. Like, we went to Tinseltown in Louisville, and we ate at Steak and Shake, and then we walked across the street, and we went to the arcade at Tinseltown and played video games, and then maybe saw a movie. I don't know. Mostly just smoked cigarettes in the parking lot. I don't know where kids smoke cigarettes now. So
Fortnite. If they did a movie theater,
they smoke cigarettes in Fortnite.
Fortnite, like the Travis Scott concert, just do virtual screenings sponsored by the movie.
Yeah, Fortnite top 10 kills compilation in Theater 6 over on your left.
Boom. I think that's the solve. Fortnite, baby. Hey guys, let us know where you would most like to watch the top 10 Fortnite kill compilation. Let us know in the comments. Let us know just your thoughts on the AT&T of it all, everything that's going on, and then also just let us know that you're doing okay, because everything sucks out there, and we hope you're doing good. Take care of each other, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for Honest Trailer Commentaries. Bye, guys.